Hi everyone, I'm super excited to host Håvard. He is a LinkedIn celebrity I know in AEC that I'm first degree connected. And if I start speaking about his AEC tech journey, let me just count. Founder of Bad Monkeys, founder of Reope, founder of AnkerDB, and a lot of tech journeys. And from what I hear from other legends at Bad Monkey, like they were pretty early in the computational design space, pushing the boundary. I don't know if you missed those discussions and forum at that time, but really grateful for your time to do this and super excited to deep dive into your stories.
Thank you so much, and thank you for the introduction. And I'm sorry for it being long, but wonderful to be here.
I see. What is one thing which most of the people don't know about your career?
Maybe that I was a terrible, terrible, terrible engineer. Yeah, really horrendous. I'm, as to the best of my knowledge, none of the buildings I ever worked on have fallen down. And if they do, I hope they don't find my fingerprints. No, I was really a completely utter useless engineer. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe someone out there knows, but I was kind of hoping to keep it quiet and silent until now, I suppose.
Damn, like the amount of buildup I gave, and then you went
Yeah,
ahead with
my
that
God.
humbleness.
Can we start this again?
But tell us about your Snowhatta days. Like, what got you into technology, and one or two highlights that stood out, memorable times.
What got me into technology was probably a combination of since childhood desire, and I don't know desire is the right word, but just like pleasure from building things, and also loved computers. I didn't love computers like deep that I was like hardwiring my own computer when I was 2. I didn't do that, but I loved using them. So when I realized that I was a useless engineer, but at the same time, I realized that I kind of like 3D modeling. I found AutoCAD and 3ds Max, hacked copies from Pirate Bay, and started just playing around. And then I'll skip the long version, but that led me on a career trajectory that put me in touch with some really skilled and interesting people. And I ended up having a job at Snowhatta, which is for a Norwegian, like the end boss in architecture. So the final boss. And I was lucky enough also to come into Snowhatta at the time where they wanted to bridge BIM and computation, because it's a global architectural firm. We don't have a lot of global architectural firms in Norway, it's a small country, but Snowhatta really went global already in the 80s. I can remember as a kid watching Snowhatta on the news in Norway, and everyone's like, wow, is it possible? And they were always really good with technology and also analog workflows. But the computation team, generally the people who operated Rhino and Grasshopper, didn't like BIM, and the BIM people weren't too interested in Grasshopper. So I came in there like trying to be the guy in the middle, and that put me. First of all, it allowed me to work with some really fun and smart people, and also I got to explore that side of technology on some really cool projects. Yeah, I think one of the coolest ones was probably this office building in Paris. That's still, if you go to the Dynamo website on Autodesk, they have a picture of it from on one of their pages.
Nice. That's interesting. And in those early 2010 era, when this computational field was shaping up parametric design and people were discussing, like, what did you ever imagine by 2025 would have this adoption? What were some predictions at that time which were correct and what didn't pan out?
I think it panned out more or less exactly how I envisioned it, at least for myself, like from my point of view. That for me, this journey is, I was almost at like physical manifestation. It was definitely a digital manifestation in the shape of software. My first big transition was BIM. Revit, and then the second one was Dynamo, and Dynamo led me into Grasshopper, and then that led me into all these other systems like Speckle and Flux and blah blah blah. And I think that by the time Dynamo was released, and maybe most importantly, the Dynamo Forum was released, I think it was January 2013. It really, like, I believe a friend of mine told me that there were more than 7,000 people signed up for the Dynamo Forums in just that first month. And so there was a huge vacuum right? So, and then all of a sudden, Ian Keogh and a few other people like opened that vacuum, and it was just everyone got sucked into it. And I think that was because there was a real need. There were Revit add-ins at the time, even free ones, but there was a real need to build customizable like data flows to manipulate parameters in Revit in more streamlined and logic ways than what the out-of-the-box solution could do. But also, I think there was a huge desire in the industry to learn how to work like this, to learn scripting that you could see and still see probably in the adoption of these systems. So and that in turn led to, I'm not saying it's the only reason, but for sure it has something to do with the drastic increase in startups in AEC, both from the Grasshopper community, but also from the Dynamo community. I think a lot of companies came out of that, like ours, for instance, 100%.
And if you look back to that time, there were a lot of plugins or custom scripts were developed, and some plugins became their own startups and companies or consultancy companies. What survived the test of time and what didn't?
Oh, wow, that's hard to answer. I because I don't follow so much the plugin space today. I'm probably not as updated as I would like to have been. Yeah, what survived? I'll mention one that didn't survive, and it's obvious to everyone who was involved in that community at the time, is that Flux, the Google-funded application out of San Francisco that we were all using to live stream data between Grasshopper and Dynamo, they shut down. And then as I envision it, probably other people feel it was different, but at the time they announced that they were shutting down in 1 month, and basically all our systems and data were going to just disappear. And I was a really heavy Flux user. I used it on all my projects and kind of freaked out. And then one of my friends said, you need to check out Speckle. And I found Speckle and I started replacing my workflows with Speckle. So they appeared with a completely different setup and kind of similar community thing that the Dynamo community had. So yeah, Flux did not survive. And I don't know so much about exactly why, but there's definitely an example of someone who couldn't find like a good business model probably at the time in this collaboration space. Grasshopper was free, Dynamo was free, all packages were free, most of the Grasshopper plugins were free, and then you come with something that's going to be a paid application in between that. Maybe it was something about that, but yeah, I don't know so much about that. But I'd say that difficult to say anything general about who survives and who don't. But there are definitely companies still thriving in this space, big and small. Do you remember Case?
Yes, that's Federico and yeah.
Yeah. So they were there already in that, custom application and basically consulting space, and they were cool and edgy and had cool T-shirts and they were a model, I suppose, for a lot of us. And then they eventually disappeared. Although I think you can still find their applications out there somewhere. I believe they got acquired, and then
WeWork.
yeah, WeWork, exactly. And then the founders and other people connected to it went and did their own thing. Like Nathan Miller created his company, and I know Dave Fano has a company, and Federico. So it's not like the people disappear; it just morphs into something else. But some companies are still there. Like Reope is still fully functional, operational. I installed their application just 1 hour ago.
Nice. If like we often hear the PayPal mafia, and now people are like getting like, okay, Palantir mafia with the founders branch. Who would you say would be the AC tech or computational design mafia? Who would you list?
I don't know. Maybe some years ago, Bad Monkeys could have been a mafia. Could be. I certainly did meet a lot of ex WeWork people around. I think there was a lot of people connected to WeWork at some point who that place had seemed to be just attracting a lot of brain power, who went out and did other things after. In Oslo, I meet a lot of ex-Spacemaker people, but it's probably quite local. There's a couple of companies. I'm staring at one now. Actually, here they're sitting right next to us here at the office, who are like ex-Spacemaker people. So yeah, just to name a few.
Do you get enough sleep?
No. Can you see it? I have 4 children, range 16 to 1, And my daughter, she's 1 year old. She still wakes up at night, and it drives me nuts. But I started doing naps in the afternoon. So we're actually now talking right in my nap time.
Damn, you're making me feel bad for scheduling this now.
Well, I scheduled it, so I can only blame myself.
But like the reason I ask is you're running multiple companies. So you gotta give us some like first of all, having one company survive in AC is challenging. And you did three. You gotta give us some secret sauce.
All right, so reality check first. First of all, I don't know if I would classify Bad Monkeys as a company. It was definitely the starting point for some of us in terms of being a kind of like a computational community in Mafia. And I think it came like at least 4 or 5 companies out of the Bad Monkeys group. And the Bad Monkeys group were 7 people. So I think you could say that was pretty decent percentage, but it's not a company. And I think that at some point we were like thinking about it being a company, but it was just too spread out across the world and markets. So, but the companies that came out of the Bad Monkeys mind, the first one, Reope. So I do not manage Reope. I actually have found and recruited people, and we have a really strong team that's been there for a long time. So that I have other people that runs Reope. I'm involved as a chairman and as the owner, and I talk to potential customers. I had 2 sales calls with Reope today. That's why I installed the tool. But that has been a very autonomous organization today, being led by our CEO Joachim. But yeah, it's a lot. And then my day job is just in one company, and that is AnkerDB or Anchor. But that has its challenges. We have a runway. We're on our way to break even, but it's still like a lot of pressure on being fast. A small team, lean, and I love the fact that we're fast and change our mind quickly and iterate. But it's also like capacity problems. So I do all of sales and marketing and all CEO stuff and all admin, and but then I have help around. So that I think that's challenging. I don't think the sum of companies here is a huge problem for me. It's a challenge to be in like a runway startup with few people and a lot to prove. It is extremely challenging to come into the AEC industry with a new application. Most of my sales calls, one of the first questions I get is that they tell me I have 170 tools. Why should I make it 171? So you need to have a pretty good answer to that question. So yeah, but so I would say the sum here is maybe not the problem, although it's stressful sometimes, and I still keep, I'm updated on everything that has to do with the cap table and shareholder stuff and economy and how the company is doing with Rio. But my daily obsession, and maybe what my main lack of sleep is how do I what do I need to do to get Anchor into the industry, which is going fairly okay to be honest, but you're never satisfied.
What are the things you have figured out in terms of go to market in AC, like getting in front of customers, sales, and what are some things you like not sure of?
Well, I suppose I can only use myself and our companies as examples, because if you ask me about, and every company has a different experience and a different story and different like problems and challenges, and then and also boundary conditions like your foundation and your constraints outside are different. But from my experience with, well, first the monkeys and then Reope and Anchor, I think it's definitely a challenging industry to digitize, but probably every industry has a challenge that's different. Right now, there's a lot of systems in the market, a little bit because of what we talked about before. Although we don't have any direct competitors, like it's very difficult to find something in the market today that does what Anchor is doing. You'll find bits and pieces that have some overlaps, but it's very difficult to find like a one-to-one competitor. Yeah, but we compete against the quantity, the quantity of systems, and an increasing problem with besides like budget constraints and oh my god, we're spending too much on software, is like how do I need to hire someone to just move files around. That's a challenge. So I don't know. In the future, maybe we'll see less systems. Maybe some survive and some don't, and then there will be more of a consolidation. I don't know, but But today that's certainly a challenge that I'm like spending a good amount of my daytime thinking about how to overcome. And then I think that when it came to sales and marketing, well, let's divide marketing. I was lucky enough to be equipped with a way of talking that people engage with. So both my parents are teachers. I have 3 younger brothers. My first job after I stopped being a useless engineer was teaching people Revit. And I probably did like more than 200 training classes of Revit. So I was in front of people all week, all day long, explaining how to use Revit. And I suppose I learned how to explain things in a compelling way. Sometimes some people probably hate it, but some people find it useful. And when you get into marketing, I think that gets very useful. Like the ability to engage people, that they, you say something and sometimes it's stupid and sometimes it's accurate and sometimes but it's always maybe interesting. And that is, when you have that, I think a lot of the marketing comes easy. Also, I was always interested in social media, so a little bit of a personal brand. Because I liked sharing and I did a bunch of YouTube videos in the old days. I definitely have what some CEOs today I wish they had or are starting to get, is that personal presence. That helps in marketing. It's a type of marketing that I like. I write everything myself, all posts, both on company profiles and my own. I do the graphics, I do the diagrams, and so that authenticity and the what's the word I'm looking for? It's like I think most of the time someone finds it interesting, and that is important in marketing. And then in sales, I'm still learning so much. This summer, I've learned the power of picking up this one. That's my kids. I'm taking this. I'm going outside of the comfort zone so many times now every day, and I'm putting on these AirPlugs, and then I just call people. I call people, and sometimes I know them, and sometimes I don't, but I call them. I called 2 people today that I never spoke to before, and I introduced myself and asked if what they're doing. And it's just a cold calling, sales cold calling, and it's uncomfortable but so underrated. I think a lot of people have a fantasy that they are going to do some kind of website, some anonymous company posts, and then it's just going to rain customers, and it doesn't. In most cases, it just doesn't. So actually figuring this, I don't know if I figured it out, but I definitely now have a little bit of a different approach to sales, which is more outbound. Do you know HubSpot?
Yes,
Yeah, yeah.
CRM. Yeah.
So inbound, right? Hashtag inbound. And we were all like taught to believe that, if you just do, communication, positioning, ideal customer profile, narrow focus, nice website, it all is going to be inbound all day long. But I think that is the reality for very, very few product companies. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, like I have so many follow-up questions on this, but like it's you're also pushing yourself outside your comfort zone, the cold calling. Because I was trying to break it down in the GTM. Okay, how do you get more calls? Task one. Second is how do you convert more calls with the sales objection and everything. So if you want to get more calls, like a lot of common narrative is go to conference, build relationship, and then they will come. Second is a build great website, do marketing, inbound will come. But there are other channels like, okay, outbound through cold email, outbound through cold calling, LinkedIn outreach system. So, how would you try to navigate? Okay, how can I just increase my metric of getting more customer calls?
Still very much figuring that out. I use a combination of emails, LinkedIn outreach, warm calls, phone calls. Phone calls seem to be potent with people I have a connection with. I wouldn't say that I'm cold calling a lot of people by random yet, at least. So I don't know. I mean, and also it's difficult. I think many times, like my job as like head of sales at Anchor is to also just be in the presence, in the mind space of people. Because even though I wish it was so, it's not. That there are like 100 people calling me every day asking for like a license of Anchor. for sure is thousands of people who have that problem every day. And I think you can say that probably about any system that survives for more than 1 year or 2 years have, probably some right to live. There are people who find it useful. If you don't have any users, you're probably going to disappear after a pretty short time. So then it's just about figuring out how people know about your system, how people know about your product, how people know about you, and then maybe being there. Hello, I'm here around the time when they're ready to execute on a solution, whatever that solution may be. And so in many ways, I consider my job as like being that, just making sure that they remember me and Anchor and the product. And then that problem is going to come on someone's desk, and then they're going to think like, maybe I remember a property database connected with BIM. That was really nice. And then the best is if I call that person that day. That is like, then we're good.
Timing. I
Yeah,
see.
timing. It's funny you mentioned it. I'm thinking so much about timing lately. It's super important.
Yeah, like from my experience, what I've learned is finding right trigger, because a lot of like sales software like Apollo, their triggers are when someone changes job or get promotion. In AC, the triggers are okay when they got a new project. So those are not built into sales system. So when they are making those choices of okay, let's invest in a new software or like that's a great time, but we don't have like either okay, you can go to permit data, identify and plan out okay what are new buildings coming up and get, but that also we don't have that trigger system
Yeah.
well developed.
Well, I think we will have it pretty soon. At least it's probably the same everywhere on the planet. But in Norway, once there's a big decision on making a project, and you know which companies are going to do it, and you can find those companies and then find out who works with, for instance, BIM in those companies, and then find their phone number or whatever, and then just be there. Hello, I saw you want a project. Kind of like that. That would be wonderful to have actually some kind of prioritize. This is your to-do list today, Håvard. You should call this person and then this person and then this person based on all this data. That would be valuable. Probably it exists. I just don't know about it. There you see a problem coming to my desk, and then probably someone has a solution out there. I just don't know they exist.
Yeah, if you're listening and you build that tool, you gotta reach out to Howard. So tell us the playbook for hiring you have.
For hiring?
Yeah.
Ooh, I don't have one. I think every time it was different. That is also something I'm learning about marketing. You think maybe you're going to do like find the recipe and just repeat that, but I find that whenever I mix it up, I get much more impressions and reactions. So now I'm all about like diversity in communication. And I think the same with recruitment. Sometimes I just crossed paths with someone, and then that ended up being just a wonderful connection, and then we're working together. And that was the case, for instance, with the CEO at Reope now, Joachim, who I was having coffee in a coffee shop in Oslo with the founder of Spacemaker, just like picking his brain on what to do and what not to do. His name is also Håvard, and we live not so far from each other, so we meet each other sometimes. I was having coffee with him, and then Joachim walked by, and I remember him from my Rumble days. And then I was like, "Hey, we should catch up and have a coffee." And then 3 months later, he was the CEO of my company.
Damn.
So sometimes it's just like that, and then sometimes I do like big campaigns with production, like properly produced, expensive video material, and just quick text that I've written beforehand that I'm reading and just like getting out there and then scraping applications, just getting a bunch of applications. And that's certainly been a good thing for my companies in the past, to do it that way, almost like a marketing, like you would do a product marketing professionally. And then and that was a few times I did that. It was differentiating. And then sometimes sometimes people come through connections looking for a job, sometimes through a company. So I would say it's different. And then that's how we like find people. But also when we and I'm actually important to underline that I'm by no means doing everything myself. I rely so much on people, both, in the board. I have a chairman at Anchor. I'm the chair, with always a team. I have a CFO that I work with and a board. But also when it comes to technical people like engineers, we always do like deep technical deep dive early in the process with the people they are going to work with. So I suppose you can say that when it comes to the evaluation, I do the first screening and I do the final personality, just quality assurance test there, and then but everything in between is usually done by other people than me, like the technical team who are going to work with them. And if they say yes, well, then you will have to be do a pretty bad job if by then you're not convincing me. But so I suppose it's been different, but it's interesting you ask, and it's a topic I like to talk about because it's something that's been really differentiating for me. I think I've done a lot of mistakes and a lot of things I would do differently. And I think that recruitment, when I did it good, it was probably one of the things that I did best.
And if you're comfortable sharing, like for a particular PR campaign, if a listener is considering for that, like what's the cost involved? Is more than $10,000? Is like less, more like
when you say PR campaign, you mean PR campaign for recruitment or PR campaign for just marketing?
if you have data for both, yeah, that would be.
Yeah, I there was a time when we did like digital marketing budget at around 10,000 per month, but didn't really work. Again, like we were waiting for the rain of inbound, but it never came. And it's a little bit difficult to pinpoint exactly what was the problem. Probably, I don't know, maybe timing, right? Maybe the product was immature or the content wasn't relevant, or I don't know, but it just didn't work. So, and that goes back to one of the things that I love about being in a startup is that when you see that something's not working, you remove it in the moment. I mean, there's no alignment time. There's no decision time. It's like this, then we change it immediately. So, so that didn't go on for forever. And we turned that off pretty quickly when it was not working. But yeah, up in that region. So there's no limit to the amount of money you can spend to Mark Zuckerberg.
I see. And on the branding side, if you were to give a crash course on founder branding, company branding, how should one conduct that exercise?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm not sure I can say anything smart about company branding because that's in the sense we do anything there. It's just keeping people updated on the product. I think that's what most people are interested in. Sometimes with your use case and sometimes with your picture from a company party or something like that. But that's maybe more for fun. I think most people who follow a company on LinkedIn is just interested in what does it do for me and how does it work, and just keeping that intelligence updated with them. When it comes to like personal branding, so I think authenticity and diversity is probably keywords. Nobody's really interested in the shiny version. I mean, some people probably are, but if you follow the Kardashians, maybe you're just interested. I don't know. I never did, so I should really not talk about the Kardashians. But I believe in authenticity. A lot of the things that I talk about today, I feel are also not just connected to timing, but also connected to comfort zone. So it's all, so many things are like connected to mindset and comfort zone. And I meet so many people who kind of wish that they would share that. A lot of people tell me, I wish I was a person who wanted to talk on LinkedIn, for instance, or go on podcast. I started today in a conference. There were about 40, 50 people in the room, and they did questions at the end, and I didn't ask a question. And I was thinking, yeah, I don't know. I felt it was too early for me. I felt uncomfortable. So that's also even something as simple as that is like an out of comfort zone experience. And I think it can be really good to get out of that comfort zone sometimes. And I just say something. And as long as it's authentic and doesn't hurt anyone, I think you have nothing to lose. So personal branding is about like just, and I think you see this today with like the TikTok generation, is that they share relentlessly everything. I'm in the makeup, didn't have a good night of sleep. Oh, my boyfriend broke up. It's like it's so transparent. Like people like me who were born in the 70s will like freak out a little bit by that. Like, how can you talk about this? This is super personal. So I think the trend is definitely going in that direction. And that's what like I see now on LinkedIn. You have like these 65-year-old superstar CEOs on doing videos about their training session in the morning. And 10 years ago you couldn't see them. They were not doing that, but now they are. So I saw a post on LinkedIn yesterday that I believe it was Salesforce or one of these big companies were hiring a head of CEO content, like a person whose job it is to create content for the CEO and post it on social media. So that's definitely just getting more and more important.
So, yeah, distribution with content. I
Yeah.
also feel like it's the scalable. What would be culture of AnkerDB in 5 words?
The culture,
Yeah,
freedom, responsibility, high performance, chill. I think that's 5 words.
I see. So I'm gonna see some chill party photos soon.
We're 6 people, and although with an extended team, we have a larger team helping out, but the core team that's working full time is 6 people, and I'm so friggin' proud of how much we get done with such a small team, and that is due to high performance, but it's also due to freedom and responsibility. People take responsibility. I'm looking at them right now. They're sitting right there. That's my desk. I have the engineering team are all here at the office, and they take responsibility for the product functioning and being a good experience for the users. But they also have a lot of freedom. So I don't tell them when, nobody talks about when you're in the office or not. But if a customer has a problem and you're like not there and you don't respond, then we have a problem. So that is something, even though it's maybe not written down, we don't have a handbook or anything. I think that understanding everyone appreciates. Yeah. And then, yeah, high performance that we have to have. I don't see how you can do anything as a startup without that. And probably, and this can easily be like a negative thing to talk about. I don't want to do that. But if you're not ready to put in the effort that needs to be done, you probably don't want to work in a startup, because that just doesn't work and it kills everything. It spreads. You need to do, and that's something I feel very strongly about Anchor. And we have to do something that is extremely difficult. If we do nothing, we're gone in 2 months. I mean, you're climbing a mountain that is so high and so steep, and only the strong can do that. At the same time, of course, why do people get involved with startups? And that's probably, personality wise, you love the fact that it goes fast, you love the variety, and you love the maybe unpredictability. Maybe you're a little bit of a risk person, and every victory is so immense. Signing this Monday, we signed 3 contracts in one day. I was flying. I was so happy. I mean, you have no idea. That of course, it attracts a certain type of person. So that's for the high performance. I worked through the entire summer this year. Not every day, 8 or 12 hours at all. Maybe 1 hour or half an hour or something. But you have a product company that is supposed to have a global reach. You need to be available and to have some kind of communication going on and talk to the market. And you can't just shut off. So yeah, freedom, responsibility, and then also the chill because of the same thing as I mentioned before. It's like freedom, responsibility, and then that nobody. I hope that the people who work at Anchor feel it's kind of chill also.
We're gonna wrap up the interview with a rapid fire. You have only 10 to 15 seconds max to answer it. You gotta do it very fast. Okay. Who's your role model?
Jürgen Klopp.
Your favorite restaurant?
Mardareia and Ericeira.
Any city which is in your travel bucket list?
Mumbai.
Is there anything that keeps you up at night?
Anxiety.
Anything you wish you would have done differently in life?
Enjoy it more.
Your favorite movie?
Sicario.
Your favorite architecture building?
Le Monde headquarters, Paris.
Any book which made a big impact in your life?
To Sell is Human, Daniel Pink.
Any mentor you want to give a shout out to?
Christine Grape, the best boss I ever had in my life.
Best piece of advice you have received till date?
Think twice before you hire someone.
3 words your team or like CEO would describe you as?
Childish, energetic, fun, I hope.
If you were to teach at university, what is one class or one course you would teach?
That is a great question. History.
Any advice to 18-year-old version of you?
Take school a little bit more seriously and think twice before you marry or hire someone.
All right. This was so fun and insightful. Thanks a lot, Howard, for your time.
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation. This was fun for me also. Thank you.
Right.